Ew! Smells like it's time for another Shy Life podcast.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Oh, there's gonna be some drama ahead.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
Hello. It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Good boy. He said all that Shy is right.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life podcast.
Hello, Paul.
626.
Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast for Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How you doing? I'm alright. So what's this episode going to be about? Well, it's going to be about one of my poetry books. One that is sort of 10 years old this year. But it took a little bit longer than some of my books to actually get published. I mean, not months or years longer, but I think I kept tweaking it and changing it and yeah. Anyway, the book is called Are We There, Yeti? Poems and Stories by a Shy Yeti. And it's one of a few books that we'll be talking about this year, because in 2013 I published two new collections, Are We There, Yeti? And then another book which I released around the time of my 40th birthday, at the end of the year. Plus, we have two books this year that are reaching their 20th anniversary, which we haven't talked about. So, yeah. I know I don't read much of my verse on the show anymore, so, yeah. We'll definitely be looking at those, because people have been asking, where's the verse, Shy Yeti? So, yes. Okay, well, let's run that theme music, and when we come back, I'll tell you a bit about Are We There, Yeti?
Darling, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, well, it's a positive thing, Paul. The high life, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious.
Hello, Captain. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you, Paul?
Oh, yippee.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, he hasn't found out my secret. I think he has.
I love the Yeti. It's my favorite thing.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
Has the Shy Life podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
It's all green and meaty. Yum, 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 yum.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
I like that, yeah.
Marvellous, Paul.
Hi there.
So, yes, Are We There, Yeti? The cover has a number of different pictures on. Although I feel like this may have been a book that I changed the cover a few times. So there are probably earlier versions. The copy I have in my hand, I think, is the finished version. It's actually got lots of bits and pieces in. I think I must have read from this copy before. Yeah. One of the subtitles of this book is Odd Tales from My World Travels. So, as well as poems, there are short stories. We'll see about whether we cover those or whether I just stick to the poems. There are obviously prose pieces as well, which are shorter. A lot of the photos from this book do come from travels I made in 2011. The picture on the front cover, one of them is for me in Hollywoodland, well, in a wood in Griffith Park, which has a sign that says Hollywoodland. There's also a picture of me somewhere in Ireland, and a picture of me at one of my gigs drinking from a teacup. But the back cover has a picture of me appearing to eat a cactus, and also a picture of me on Mount Hood let me read you the back cover. Are We There, Yeti contains 100 poems and stories that Paul Chandler, aka Shy Yeti, wrote between July and December 2011, much of it during his summer and autumn trips to the United States. The poems include Glue to Mend a Broken Heart, Never Trust a Skinny Fish and Chip Man, Invite a Yeti Round for Tea, Is It Christmas Already, John, I'm Only Rhyming, My Long Lost Friend, and the title verse. Stories include The Creepy Show, A Cup of Sugar, Rattlesnakes, Santa's Bit on the Side, and A Yeti History Lesson of Hollywood. So, yeah, it is very inspired by my trips out there. I didn't have any trips to America in 2012, but I did go back again in 2013. As I say, I can't 100% remember why there was such a delay. I'm just flicking to the back, actually, and there's an alternate cover to this book, which I can't remember if that's one I sort of decided to... It was a bit too busy, had a bit too many photos. I know it must seem a bit strange, listeners, that I don't remember some of these things, but it has been 10 years, and those titles, though, those poems that are mentioned on the back cover, are probably some of my favourites that I ever wrote. And as you know, I've not done a lot of poetry in the last sort of 6 or 7 years, partly because of the podcast, and partly because I've done very little writing at all, really. A few things. Of course, I did the book with Nick, and I did a book of scripts, and I did a book of sort of blogs, pieces of Shy Yeti. But what with how complicated it became to use Lulu, it definitely put me off. And also, I did feel I'd written so many poems. I wouldn't say that the ones at this era were bad, but I think I felt after I had written the 2 books that came out in 2013 that, well, I was focusing on my scripts. I didn't write another book until A Yeti Way of Thinking, which I think that was sort of 2016, around the time that the podcast started. So, yeah, it's just that I guess I'd come to the end of the line for a while with verse. I mean, I still write scripts sometimes for this podcast. A lot of the second episode of the Bettina Dupre episode at her garden party was scripted, particularly the Adam scenes, because that was quite complex and you can't expect a guest character to come in and understand everything that's been going on for months on your show. So I wrote those because it wouldn't really have worked with improv, although the first episode was improv. The stuff with Toppie and I, but then that was different because Toppie's involved with the show all the time. I did write a poem called Best Bet, which I'm not sure whether you've heard or not, but it's one we turned into the song with Harry. That was the first poem or verse that I'd written in, a very long time. And it's still nice to dip in and do lyrics or verse now and again. And I think, as I've said to people, I can see it happening again at some stage. But when I started writing poetry, I wouldn't say I sat down and thought, oh, I'm going to do it. It just happened. And I wrote one, and then I wrote another, and then I wrote another. And then I started realising I was going to be writing quite a few, and ended up putting a book together and dipping into old poems that I'd written when I was at school. And yeah, you can't plan these things, you can't make them happen, or if you do, that the outcome isn't going to be great. So never say never. And if Harry and I decide to do another song, I'll try and think of a subject. It's just a matter of thinking of a subject that I haven't covered. I mean, that makes it sound like like I'm writing an encyclopedia of poetry, which isn't the case at all. I guess I mean, I want to write about a subject that interests me. And I guess I have had some experiences in the last 7 years that are different, or new experiences that I'd never had before, which I could dip into. But, sometimes they feel a bit too personal or a bit too sad. Not that every poem I wrote or every prose piece I wrote was a bundle of laughs. Some of them were quite dark, but maybe I'm just not in the right place to be mining that. But we'll see. Anyway, Are We There, Yeti? As I say, plenty of photos as usual. how many pages? It's a big one. 368 pages. Now, it says that the contents were written between July and December 2011. It was typed and formatted in a first draft by July 2012, and this edition, which is the final edition, was published in February 2013. I did do another compilation volume in 2012, Shy Yeti Still Rules OK. I'd done a book in about 2009, Shy Yeti Rules OK, and yeah, then I did Shy Yeti Still Rules OK. I think I was quite busy with shorter books and other bits and pieces, but I did think the book was going to come out sometime towards the end of 2012, and for whatever reason it didn't. I was doing my videos around that time as well. I should read you some of this and see whether this is interesting. Before we continue, I should tell you more about how this book came about. Much of Are We There, Yeti was written during 2 trips I made to the States during 2011, one in late July, early August, and one in November. I visited Los Angeles, Portland, and San Diego, and recorded a number of my Shy Yeti on Location episodes. The American pieces only account for about 50% of the 100 items included here, with the remainder written back in London between those 2 trips, from August to late November 2011. A few pieces were written during a trip to the Isle of Wight in August 2011, and a long weekend to Lille during October 2011. There were also some short stories such as All Sweetness and Light, Breaking into the Jail, and Death Warmed Up that I began in 2010 for potential inclusion in Yeti Hugs and Other Horrors, but which were not finished in time, not to mention pieces especially commissioned for a Christmas radio show. 2012 was a busy year, with lots of new writing, films, gigs, and a little nostalgia. In the end, this is also why this collection did not emerge until spring 2013. I do hope you enjoy this book. Many thanks for reading it. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I've just seen a typo. God. Mistakes still creep in. Well, I don't read my books very often because I'm always thinking, they hide away these mistakes, even if other people are proofreading them for you. It's frustrating. Before we get to the contents page, I used to always put a sort of a favourite poem as a sort of, well, if you like this one, you might like some of the others. I mean, if you've bought it, it's a bit late, but the poem that I was always using around this time was The True Light, which was a poem from the early noughties, which is the sort of poem that kicked off me writing poems again. The contents of Are We There, Yeti? I'll read the titles, I usually do that. Whew. Right, here we go. All Sweetness and Light, Amnesia, Apartment 108, An Asylum for Authors, Are We There, Yeti? Auntie Astrid, USA Special, Bee Business, Being Stalked by the Hollywood Letters, Best Pants, The Body in the Bog, A Boy's Dream of Flight, Breaking into the Jail, Cactus Heart, Christmas Lights, Cleaning Up Afterwards, Collecting Heartache, Coming Clean, The Confession Box, Creepy Exotic, The Creepy Show, A Cup of Sugar, The Daily Grind, Dear Dearly Departed, Death Warmed Up, The Dust of Ages, An Inquiring Mind, Excitement in Life, Feeding Time, A Fly on the Wall, The Food of Love, Fruit Bats, Glue to Mend a Broken Heart, Good Times Again, A Happy Xmas, Healthy Living, The Hoodies Next Door, How Money Spiders Get Their Name, Husband Potential, The Hypocrisy of Old Age, The Ice Creaming Abdabs, Addabs, I don't know, Ink on Our Hands, In the Locker Next to Mine, In the Soup, Invite a Yeti round for tea, Is a Toadstool a Toad's Tool, Is It Christmas Already, Jelly Baby, Jitters, John Amoni Rhyming, LA and I Get On Just Fine, Thank You, Life Isn't Always Fair, Living in Hollywood, Losing Your Memory Isn't Always a Bad Thing, Minotaurs and Other Everyday Lovers, a trilogy. That was 3 poems. Never Mind the Minotaur, Crack Can You Hear Me, Cthulhu, You Are Hot, Mistletoe Mania, A Morning Yawn, Murdering That Song, My Long Lost Friend, Never Never Be Forgotten, Never Trust a Skinny Fish and Chip Man, A New Book in the Family, Nom Nom Nom, Part of the Family, A Photo Fallen, Rattlesnakes, Rehab for Cannibals, Rich pickings, ring ring, running late, Santa's bit on the side, a seat on the wing, a sense of style, the serial killer of Little Italy, a shadow over La Jolla Cove, the shame of a middle-aged Bonnie and Clyde, so irritating, statue Esquire, status symbols, sweaty Yeti, take care when giving Christmas presents, there are no rules, toast, too short to be a Yeti, a tragic demise, trick or the true light prose version, turn and turn again, the unpublished novel, a very shy psychopath, view from a fallen oak, the war against red tape, the wedding planner, weird wide web, what goes around, the wrong pen, a Yeti history lesson of Hollywood, you're no friend, let's be enemies, your new boyfriend's a minger, and then of course there's the big behind the scenes section, which we'll come to in a moment. There are one or two pieces in this collection which I dug up from the archives, which were really old pieces, but yeah, so the first 237 pages or so is the actual poems. I guess about 2 pages per item, whether it be a poem and a photo, or I guess some of the short stories were a little bit longer. And then the last 100 or so pages is the behind the scenes section. So before I start reading some of the poems, I guess we may plunge in to what sort of things were going on. I always gave a list of when the poems were written. As I say, most of these are from 2011. Then, of course, we have the section which I always did, where I wrote a paragraph or more about each poem. I mean, this is as specific as where I was when I was writing the piece, or if something inspired it, sort of dates when I was writing it, and yeah, I've written, half a page, third of a page on each poem. So that takes up, a fair amount of space at the back of the book, with pictures, of course. As I've said before, it was commented when I read my poems in LA at how busy my poetry books were, how packed they were full of material. I'm not sure that was the typical style of a poetry book, but if you could do it, I didn't see why you shouldn't do it. Plenty of pictures of me, maybe more than one would wish to see, but there you go. I also included a diary called The Shy Life, which was, of course, the name of one of my books from 2009. So, yeah, I basically copied over a lot of the text from the blogs. I don't know how interesting it is. It depends how deeply, I guess, you want to know about what I was writing. But it's a real writing diary for me, and I'm glad I've got it, because I wouldn't remember these things. So, for instance, from this diary, I can tell you that on Tuesday, the 2nd of August 2011, I returned to the Cobalt Cafe in LA, which no longer exists in a physical form, although the poetry nights still continue online. This is when I sort of was the featured reader of that night, and they were very kind to me. The organiser shuffled around some other poets so that I could be the featured reader on this particular night, as it was the only... I think I was around for 2 weeks, but we were going somewhere. They moved things around so that I could read on that night. When I did a show, I always sort of did a quite detailed blog of every poem that I read on the night, even the poems that I had intended to read that I didn't. A lot of these shows from this era I've also had videoed or recorded by friends in the audience, so they exist, or they're on YouTube, which is another nice memento to have. But yeah, I'm very grateful to Rick Luper, who organised those nights and still does them to this day. That he did a little shuffling to allow me to read. Of course, when I was writing one book or performing these occasional shows, maybe I'd have a book out and I'd read from that book, but I'd also read some new poems for the next book, or some old poems from old books. Around 2011, around sort of early autumn 2011, my book Funeral for a Shoe was the book that I was focusing on. We've done a podcast on that already, but as early as September 2011, I was previewing things from Are We There, Yeti on my blog, and probably reading those poems at shows if you so wanted. There's even a list here of the ratings, the number of views of my Shy Yeti videos as of the 15th of September 2011. I was very obsessed with numbers. It's the most exciting thing to see videos going up. My most watched video at this time was actually one of my Sutton Park revival episodes, and my most watched video of my poetry videos was one of my early ones, Shy Yeti on location in Dorset. The videos still get viewed to this day, but really in the scale of things, compared to the travelogues that I watch, where it's been loaded up for an hour and you look and there's like 20,000 views already. I've never had views like that for anything I've ever done. Whether I could have done, I don't know. I never really knew that people could make a living out of YouTube. I'm not even sure that many of the people who do YouTube now were even making YouTube videos that far back, although I was hardly new at it myself. I mean, it had been around for quite a while. I can't remember when YouTube started. Was it mid-noughties? But no, I never really knew about promoting myself. But I guess a lot of those Shy Yeti on location videos are a little bit like the sort of travelogue videos that I watch myself now. So in another life, maybe I'd still be doing them. But I also think it's probably a young person's game. Most of the travelogues stations I watch are featuring people who perhaps started off in their late 20s and now in their mid-30s are making a living out of it. I wasn't even starting doing my videos until I was, in my mid-30s. I mean, it's all excuses. I know that. I'm sure there are plenty of people, older and younger, who have successful YouTube videos. But, as I say, in another life, I'm a podcaster, man. So yeah, around 2011, I was also releasing the 10th anniversary books of some of my early collections, like Junk Food. That was hitting its 10th anniversary. Yeah, there are 2 books from that reissue series that will be out this year, or have been out, depending on when this goes out. I'm talking about things I was up to in October 2011, filming in Lille and Bruges, and House of Commons books I was writing, books I was reissuing or taking photos for covers, because when I reissued for the 10th anniversary books, I did photos. There were never photos in the original versions. It's kind of appropriate that I put the True Light at the front of this collection, and also did a prose version, because during 2011 the True Light hit its 10th anniversary. As I say, it was very sort of influential as far as it pushed me on to write more. October 2011, I was doing videos. I was appearing on Radio Way. Of course, I went on Radio Way with Tim a few times with the video around this time. Then I think there was a bit of a break again, because I had made a first appearance back in the noughties. Then I had this sort of period when I was making the videos. Again, nice to have that as a memento. And then around the time I started the podcast, of course we did quite a lot of shows with Tim on Radio Way for the podcast. So Tim doesn't really do those shows now, so that's why we haven't been on there for a long time. He's busy with other projects. But so yeah, as I say, Funeral for a Shoe came out in November 2011. All ratings of the videos from October. Sutton Park is still number 1. I used to do, and I'm sure it sounds very egotistical, but I used to interview myself on my blog as to what I was up to. I guess I should do one again. I've not done one for ages. I think it's probably because the podcast is so ongoing. There's always new episodes every few days, so it's difficult to sort of, stop and look back. Maybe I should at the end of the year. I mean, when I had a book coming out or a show, there was something I could aim for or post about. But yeah, I used to kind of think of the sort of questions you would ask somebody, like, what are you writing? What are you working on? What's the next gig going to be? Where are you travelling to? And I just answered those questions. I thought, well, no one's ever going to do that. No one's ever going to ask me these questions, so I might as well ask them myself. Because just in case somebody is reading the blog, well, here are the answers. You can't wait until other people decide to interview you. And also, again, it's a snapshot from that time. And there were things I just wouldn't remember now if I wanted to talk about them. So I went back to America in November 2011. I did a detailed diary for a blog around that time. Funeral for a Shoe came out in November 2011. I did a show around that time as well, which was sort of quite close to my 38th birthday. You're probably wondering why is the diary, so the book's published in 2013, why is the diary from 2011? Well, I tended to keep the diary from the period that the poems sort of came from. And as we've established, there was a bit of a delay. But yeah, the gig that I did in November 2011 wasn't for Funeral for a Shoe. It was actually the Junk Food 10th anniversary gig on the 18th of November 2011 at the Poetry Cafe in London. I started with 2 Yeti themed poems. I read 2 new poems. I read 4 poems from Junk Food, which was the book we were celebrating. My friend John Smallshaw came and read for a while. I did a cover version of Maxwell's Silver Hammer by the Beatles, a spoken word one. I often did that. I like reading song lyrics as poems. That's one of my favourite Beatles songs. I read more poems from Junk Food. We had a break. I read another Yeti poem. Read more poems from Junk Food. Read some poems from Funeral for a Shoe. John Smallshaw read some more. I read some bits from the Vampire Cows of Scunthorpe collection. And then 2 pieces from Are We There, Yeti? And then a couple more from Junk Food. And then finish with some favourites. My Dog in a Dress, A Learning Experience, The True Extent of My Genius, and I Will Eat Pies. I was back on the radio again in late November. We did a Christmas show, but we did do it quite early. But I'd done a book, I did a collection around that time of Christmas poems called Too Sloshy for Snowmen, which I think we've discussed before. I was able to put videos out from those shows, which was nice. More ratings. My highest rated poetry video by this point was A Yeti in Winter. I was used to write a Christmas story as well, and put that in my blog. Santa's Bit on the Side was my Christmas story that year. Actually, I think I wrote 2 from the looks of it. I also used to do not very sophisticated posters, which were just done on an A4 sheet with a picture, and I'd laminate them and put them at the Poetry Cafe and 1 or 2 other places, and I put them in the back of the book so that, when you buy one of my books, it is a complete memento of that period. So I did Shy Yeti's Junk Food in November. I also did a little section in this book about Anything Goes, which was my first book of poems that I released back in 1992, which I didn't even remember releasing. A lot of the best bits from Anything Goes I put into Junk Food, but I thought it was important to sort of mention that, because I'd forgotten part of my own writing history, effectively. I also had some little adverts for friends' creative works. My friend Gibson's cartoon series, another friend's business, which was illustrations, and yeah, I think it's time for me to read some bits and pieces from this book now. At last, I hear you cry. Yeah, we're only 30 minutes plus in, but there we go. Where shall I start? Well, I probably will go for the shorter pieces. There are short stories, and yes, maybe one day I should read some of those, but I will probably either focus on the shorter prose pieces or the poems. Although the book, the first 20 pages are about 2 or 3 short stories. I probably ought to start with the poem that this book is named after. Are We There, Yeti? Are we there, Yeti? Are we going too fast? There's no way that the picnic you brought us will last. There's no way our provisions will last us a week. You've been scoffing the lot, which I think's quite a cheek. You've been scoffing them down when you think we're not looking. So I guess that tonight it'll be you who is cooking. Are we there yet? Or have you got us all lost? Travelling with a Yeti sure comes at a cost. Are we there, Yeti? Are we going too quick? Shooting off down the hill, it will make us all sick. It will shake up our stomachs, it will make us all spew. If you're going to drive, you can't drink special brew. If you're driving us there, you must pay more attention, or you're going to meet with a lot of dissension. Are we there yet? Or will you say when we are? We should have taken the coach, not this old bumper car. Are we there, Yeti? Are we flying at speed? You have found a good book you are trying to read. But you can't read a book or paint portraits unsightly. Cannot stand on your head. No, nor close your eyes tightly. We can't stand for such tosh. You're not treating us fairly. Keep your eyes on the road, 'cause you're doing so rarely. Are we there, Yeti? Shut your mouth and don't talk. Yes, be seen and not heard, or just get out and walk. Are we there, Yeti? Are we right off the chart? I'm not sure that I like what you do for your art. I'm not sure that I care for your lunatic vision, for your experimentation, and our quite cramped position. You've locked us all in the boot of your beaten-up buggy, 'cause we nagged you so much. But, my dear, it's so muggy. Are we there yet? Or have we just lost our way? We could drive off a cliff, but you'd still claim we're okay. One of many Yeti poems that I've written over the years. Just a play on words, really. I would read you some Auntie Astrid, but Auntie Astrid was a character that started off in Mouse of Commons books, and my friend Gareth and I, we'd take turns. He'd either write the original letter or do the reply, and we used to use them in Mouse of Commons books, and I did put some of them in my collections, and I think that if I was including them here, it would mean that they're all ones I wrote. Maybe it's at the stage where I was writing both letter and response, but I'm not 100% sure, so I think I will move on. Some of the stories here are breaking into the jail. That's about 10 pages. I should read you Cactus Heart. She's something else, not what she seems. She slept her way round football teams. She's had them knocking at her door, then kept a tally of her score. A pretty sight that must be seen, with grand ambitions to be queen. She's quite adorable at the start. Just don't be tricked. That girl, she has a cactus heart. She's something else, you'll see I'm right. Don't be fooled because she wears clothes tight. She's on a mission, that mission's you. She's just waiting for the perfect cue. She'll tell you all you want to hear. She'll play it shy or shed a tear. She knows her place and plays her part. But do beware that girl, she has a cactus heart. She's something else, you ought to know. She's cruel when she puts on a show. She's kinda shy, it's just a hunch. She packs a quite ferocious punch. And yet she does so with a smile, with charm and grace and utter style. She's quite a lady, quite a tart, quite in control. That girl, she has a cactus heart. She's something else, though not ideal. She can't be trusted behind the wheel. She's working as a hired gun. That kind of thing to her is fun. She's got a mean vindictive streak. Wait till you see her twisted peak. She's an expert with a poisoned dart. My darling wife, my beloved, with the cactus heart. And I think that's the case of a poem that was written mainly because when I was in LA and we went to Topanga Canyon, you saw a lot of those prickly cactus that were sort of heart-shaped. And I took some really good pictures, and I thought I got to write a poem called Cactus Heart, and later I did a sort of, well, around this time I suppose, I did a collection of sort of romantic or twisted romance poems, just a compilation that was called Cactus Heart. Obviously Cactus Heart was in that collection. I think it appeared in the compilation before it appeared in this book, even though it was written for this book. But the compilation overtook the publishing of this collection. Yeah, I really did think this picture of a cactus that looks like a heart, it has to be on the front cover of a book. So I specifically did a compilation just so that could happen. This one's called Christmas Lights. I know it's not the right time of year, but Christmas Lights. I knew that when I was just a sapling, things weren't quite right. The decorations that they gave me were a little under par. The lights that they dressed me up in were ones that had been stuffed into a box 5 years before and left forgotten in the attic. A lot of the bulbs were duff and only gave out a quite weak glow. I was lost amongst all the other festivities in the corner of a lonely room. That year I was barely noticed, but every year since I've grown. Now I have new tinsel, a few really fancy baubles, and as for my lights, one by one they have been replaced. I shine well now, up there as bright as any star, and I'm confident that I will only get brighter. Watch me, you'll see. One day soon you'll have to wear sunglasses just to look at me. As bright as moonglow, a spotlight, a lighthouse, and I'll say, follow me. Are you lost? Let me save you. Let me show you the way home. Let me keep you safe. If I promise not to run up too large an electricity bill, can we be housemates? I'm not sure that Christmas tree would be getting a lot of use these days, sadly. Although, considering the current energy crisis, when I recently went to the hospital for an appointment, I had to get a taxi, and my appointment was like quite late in the afternoon and it was dark. You certainly wouldn't have thought there was an electricity crisis because every house, the whole route was lit up. So many Christmas decorations outside houses, let alone inside. So I guess this is relatively quite a well-off area. Oh, there's even a picture here of me outside the phone box in my parents' village. So that phone box has been used as a recycling point for well over 10 years now. Quite a lot of stories I'm going through. The Creepy Show, A Cup of Sugar. They're not long stories, but they're 2 or 3 pages. The Daily Grind, Dear Dearly Departed, Death Warmed Up, that's a story. This one's called The Dust of Ages. Anita had worked in the college library for many years. Her former students always seemed to recognise her, though. Oh, my dear, you still work here? Anita would smile and nod. Yes, it's been a long time now. But you don't look a day older. She didn't either, but they always did. Anita remembered every one of them, each and every reader. She recalled them as undergraduates in their early 20s, but the earliest of those were now nearing retirement, were wrinkled and or balding, and that was just the women. You look just the same, they'd say, at first casually, and then with surprise, when it hit them quite how long it had been. You look exactly the same. They would never truly understand the full implications, of course, and it just wasn't worth explaining. This was Anita's own little secret. It was the dust of ages collected in the library books that did it. When the library closed, she would select a few of the oldest texts and sniff the dust, rather like someone taking snuff or something stronger. It made her cough, but it was worth it. It really did the trick. And, best of all, it kept her young. Anita had been the college librarian for a little over 175 years now, and she had no intention of retiring anytime soon. My boss at the college library for about 10 years or more was called Anita, and sadly she did retire, or she moved on to another library. I think the year following when I wrote this. I really should have left that college when she left, because she was such a good boss and so supportive, and the people who followed her just weren't as experienced as her, sadly. So when they came to attack the library, they weren't up to the job of standing up for it. Anyway, that's a long time ago now. Yes, more shortish prose pieces. The Food of Love, Fruit Bats. There's a picture. When I read at the Cobalt Cafe, Rick used to do like a cover sheet which had one of the poems that the person would be reading, and everyone would get a copy, like a poster, and then if they wanted it signed, you could sign it. It was really nice. I chose a piece called A Learning Experience from one of my early books, which is actually a prose piece really, rather than a poem. But, okay, let's do this one. Glue to Mend a Broken Heart. It says, to be read slightly melodramatically, or maybe not, it's up to you. Give me sympathy and sanity, a glass of Chardonnay. Let me sit and think about the times you let me have my way. Let me contemplate about those nights you're promised to be mine, before our love grew complicated, before it died upon the vine. Give me reason to think fondly of that foolish, wasteful year, or should I wipe it from my mind, just let it quickly disappear? Give me glue to mend my broken heart, leave me lonely, please don't speak. Give me words on which to rest my head, to cling to when I'm weak. Give me solace, give me silence, give me whiskey, serve it neat. Loving you is an experience I would rather not repeat. Except, you know, I'm really lying, and if the chance would come again, I would put up with the torment and just forget you caused me pain. Give me reason to think kindly, not remember all the lies. I should have kept my love on ice, I should have been more worldly wise. Give me glue to mend my broken heart. Seems for now there is no feeling. My poor heart remains too numb and doesn't yet feel like it's healing. Give me passion, give me violence, give me vodka on the rocks. Then set free my love for you that is as strong as any ox. So you feel nothing for me now and our relationship is strained. You cannot keep a love like that, so meanly trapped, cruelly contained. Give me reason not to hate you for all the mind games that you played. Make it clear you didn't want me and don't regret you never stayed. Give me glue to mend my broken heart, and I shall repair it piece by piece. But why now do I feel so bitter, since I am offered sweet release? The hypocrisy of old age. I'm an old dude now. I get to be cranky, I get to say whatever I want, though it is also your right to ignore me. I know that my views still get to you. Deep down, despite your devil-may-care attitude, it registers, whether you admit it or not, whether those views of mine are really, actually, my views or not. I like to say them anyhow to get a reaction. It is part of the hypocrisy of getting older. I can say stuff that I don't actually believe in, that shames you in some way, perhaps. Downright lie. I'm an old dude now, and you don't know any better. When I was your age, they had us working down the pit, cleaning out chimneys with our bare hands, with our tongues. We were proud to fight for our country. It made men of us, whatever that actually means. Kids these days don't know they're born. They don't know how easy they've got it. When I was 6, I was manning my own tank across enemy lines. When I was 10, I single-handedly saved a whole city from certain death and led them to safety across mountain wildernesses without a map. Kids these days don't know any better. Part of them wisely don't believe me nor care, but the other part secretly does, just in case, not liking to be wrong. That part says, he's an old dude. Old dudes don't lie, 'cause they're old. He must actually have done everything that he claims. It makes them feel that little more useless about their own sorry lives, which in turn makes me feel a little better about mine. They allow me to spout out my nonsense, my cranky hypocrisy, despite none of it being true, despite none of it actually happening, except the one or two bits that really did. I was no more a veteran of war than your pet dog was. I no more believe any of that stuff than your pet cat does. I spent my youth smoking, drinking, chasing pretty girls and handsome men, or at least trying to, just like you do. We have more in common than you ever realise. But I'm an old dude, and I want you to know how much harder I had it. Just to screw with your mind like people once did to me. Consider it a free service. Your turn will come all too soon. There's a typo here, Deals. Deals is here. There's a typo here. Oh, so annoying. I used to say that because I read a lot of these poems live, that more than once, that I was sort of proofing them. But Deals doesn't want me to read. Ow, you're putting your claws in my hand, Deals. You don't want me to read? That's going to be a problem, Dealsy. I've seen another typo as well. Deals, I can't see. Why are you not in one of these books, Deals? Hey, you were around. More stories. You're going to sit down rather than stand. There. This one's called Invite a Yeti Round for Tea. Invite a Yeti round for tea. Well, then I really ought to warn you. They're not the bestest guests, and they will very often scorn you. They will criticise your curtains, flick their peas across the table, watch them growl the national anthem just as loud as they are able. They will turn their noses up at any vegetables you're cooking. They will make a pass at Granny when they think that no one's looking. As they blunder round your kitchen, 8 foot tall and rather burly, you'll not keep the carpets clean, nor send them home, it's far too early. Invite a Yeti round for tea when it will be your tragic loss, because they will not bring a gift, because they do not give a toss, because they threaten to be trouble and your chandeliers are shaking. They're oh so terrible at giving, and yet excel when comes to taking. Molting fur around your lounge, oh, a tornado would be cheaper. A decent cleaner costs a lot, you'll need a heavy-duty sweeper. Yet to eat you out of house and home, they really cost a flipping packet. With their flatulent announcements, make such a burping, belching racket. Invite a Yeti round for tea and you do so at your error. They will turn your toupee white and fill your bank account with terror. You may berate your local yobbo for antisocial ways of living, but after time spent with a Yeti, you may be rather more forgiving. You might prefer a hooligan with all his noisy rampant boozing than a Yeti on the loose, for it's your sanity you're losing. As they oaf about the place, no, you will not find them entrancing. They'll leave depressions in your patio when they start their Yeti dancing. Invite a Yeti round for tea and you do so at your peril. They can be undignified, they can be absolutely feral. It's quite a shock when first it happens, you might need a quick lie down. But I suggest you just relax and don your finest evening gown. Yes indeed, for I'd advise that you embrace their clumsy action, and over time maybe you'll find a certain furry-assed attraction. It's just no fun to watch them play their scoffing cake with all the bears. You need to join their crumb-drenched chaos. Yes, then get invited round to theirs. The next two are two of my favourites in this book, and they're next to one another in the book. This is a toadstool a toad's tool? As a country boy, I have a question. It may be a ludicrous suggestion, but I need to ask. Don't make me wait. I must be certain, so set me straight. Is a toadstool a toad's tool? Do they use a toadstool as a seat? Do they use a toadstool as a hairpin? Do they use a toadstool to make heat? Do they use a toadstool as a dummy, just to silence all frogs when they croak? Does a toadstool have multiple uses? Is a toadstool a thing you can smoke? This country boy still has his question. I know, a ludicrous suggestion, but I'm quite sincere, sir, not a chancer, so please tell me now if you know the answer. Is a toadstool a toad's tool? Do they use a toadstool as a coat? Do they use a toadstool as a hat stand? Do they use a toadstool as a boat? Do they use a toadstool as a brolly when the clouds rudely spill out their rain? Will a toadstool save us from extinction? Tell me quick and I'll surely refrain. Naive country boy, I had a question. It was a ludicrous suggestion, for I've money on it and I guessed it so. But I'm dead broke now. How The answer's no. This one's called Is It Christmas Already? Yes, I'm sorry, another Christmas poem, but it's kind of about how Christmas encroaches far too early. Like last year, we were seeing Christmas adverts and Christmas things in the shops in September. Absolutely ridiculous. If I had my way, the year would end after my birthday in November. Is it Christmas already? Is it Christmas already? Well, I've not got a hat. I'm sitting in shorts on the beach I'm sat. I've not had a mince pie, nor had even a card. I've not bought any presents, nor had spuds that are charred. I've not seen any tinsel. I've not got me a tree. I've not seen Santa Claus, nor sat there on his knee. I don't want to sound mean, 'cause that's simply the worst. Ain't it a bit early for Christmas on October the 1st? Is it Christmas already? I've not seen any snow. No novelty baubles, nor noses that glow. I've not had any sprouts that are solid and steely, nor felt wandering hands being all touchy-feely. I've not heard any carols, oh so tuneless and cloying. I've not seen any ice, oh so very annoying. I don't want to sound cross, but it ain't yet December. It's just rather early for Christmas at the start of September. Is it Christmas already? Well, I've not felt any frost in my sweet little tootsies, and no toes have I lost. The leaves on the trees only opened last week. All the roses are blooming, and they're looking quite chic. I've Easter eggs yet to eat, feel a little bit sick. It is still only May. It's too soon for St. Nick. I don't want to sound strict or be really unpleasant, but this year I've banned Christmas, though I still want a present. Another favourite. Now this is called John, I'm Only Rhyming, which is a play on a Bowie song, John, I'm Only Dancing. But around this time, I never experienced this from listeners, but occasionally from poets who didn't like people using rhyme, which I really enjoy using. I mean, you have to work at it. You can't just write the first thing that comes down, or you can, but it doesn't necessarily come out well. But John Smallshaw, who I did my shows with, he also did a lot of rhyming. So, yeah. This is a poem about sort of standing up for people who want to use rhyme in poetry, which I still hear a lot of people kind of almost look dumbfounded when they're asked to describe a poem. They always say, oh, well, it rhymes, doesn't it? Not necessarily. Anyway, John, I'm Only Rhyming. John, I'm Only Rhyming. I can hear some people tut. They don't want our twisted lyrics. I think they're going off their nut. Why do they have to be so boring? Who says it's them that sets the rules? It's like they're our poetry headmasters and we're enrolled within their schools. I'm not averse to ditching rhymes if what I'm writing doesn't fit. They're all so stuck in their own ways I think they must have shares in Prit. Oh, John, I'm only rhyming, and now I don't mean to impose, but ain't it best to be free-thinking and just write down whatever flows? John, I'm only rhyming, but I see it as a gift. While some other people grumble, I really think they're pretty miffed. I cannot fathom why they worry, why they make their weak protest. Do they really think they're better? Do they really think they're blessed? That's the sort of attitude that makes folk think they're high and mighty. We want them reading us at breakfast over croissants in their nighties. Oh, John, I'm only rhyming. Yes, we should start our own campaign. Let us stand up for the rhymers. We've really got to make it plain. John, I'm only rhyming. Am I not a proper poet? Do I have to be pretentious? Have I failed? Heck, did I blow it? Do I really have to mean it? Do I need to get more tougher? Do I have to fight the good fight? Do I really have to suffer? Yes, the most eccentric stanzas into poems should be smuggled. I simply want to play with words. The English language should be juggled. Oh, John, I'm only rhyming. Don't you agree? It's quite beguiling. I only want to make 'em chuckle. I simply want to keep folks smiling. Oh, John, I'm only rhyming, and it's what I'll keep on doing. Oh, let the academics scowl, or let them say we've gone to ruin. Yes, let them claim we're an abhorrence. Let them give us a bad name. Why do we ever want to be like them? Why would we ever want to be the same? They're like the bullies in the schoolyard. Well, let them bugger off, go hang, and we will do just as we please. Yes, form some crazy rhymers gang. Oh, John, I'm only rhyming. Let's flaunt our lyrical defiance and keep on doing what we do. You know, it's hardly rocket science. Yes, that's also about just enjoying playing with words and having fun with them. And why does it have to be serious? And, you know, if you're writing a funny piece, then rhyme is often a really good tool. Anyway, used to read that one a lot at shows. People used to like that one. This one is a prose piece. It's called LA and I Get On Just Fine, Thank You. LA and I get on just fine, thank you. I decided to meet her on my terms, to treat her like an old friend, rather than some monstrous dominatrix. I may have confused her for a moment by not wanting to sleep with her. She's used to folk just lying back and saying, I'm yours, chew me up and spit me back out if you have to, I don't care. That whole Hollywood experience is all very well, but it's not me. But sure, I showed up and we flirted. We were both a little wary at first, but I think LA saw that I was different. She seemed to like me almost immediately, showed me her secrets, the best places to eat, the sights to see. She wanted me to sample her at her finest. I played along, it was fun. She knew I didn't plan to take anything from her, wasn't demanding anything, that ultimately she had no hold over me and that I had no hold on her. She offered me everything and nothing, just in case I had second thoughts. I saw that, admired her for it, but turned her down graciously. I want no lasting part of that, I was respectful, no overexcited tourist. LA and I had a deal going. We understood one another. Not exactly a holiday romance, neither some shy business arrangement, maybe somewhere in between. But now, further on down the road, we're just old friends who never call. But that is exactly how it should be. There's a picture on that poem of a cow wearing big sunglasses. I think it was a statue or something. Now, let me explain that poem. I wrote quite a few poems, one about Paris, one about Florence, where I was sort of talking about them like they were people. I remember going to Florence in 2002, and I started writing poems, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go to Italy. I'm going to write wonderful poems inspired by Italy. And I wrote a couple of poems, and I wrote a surreal poem about running away with Florence like she was a girlfriend or marrying her. And you know, it could have been about any city. It wasn't anything particularly unique to Florence, but it's one of my favourites. It's called Oh Florence. And it started a bit of a tradition about writing about cities like they were lovers or ex-lovers. Now, the one about LA, it's kind of how I thought about LA. You heard about people going to America to seek their fortune or to do auditions. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, you can get something from a city without turning yourself into a nervous wreck. I mean, not that going to Hollywood or you know, I went to Hollywood. I went to Hollywood quite a few times. I stayed in Hollywood. My friend lived in Hollywood. I like that sort of turn of phrase and just sort of thinking, I can go to Hollywood or to LA and make my videos, write my poems, go to gigs, do it on my terms. I'm not there to make money or become famous, but you could go to somewhere like Hollywood and not be in total awe of it. You can kind of think, what can I get from here? Oh, right, there's Griffith Park. Oh, there's this view. That would be good for the video. I do this, I do that. No money exchanging hands. You can have a good, fun, creative time, and you can come away with, sort of, well, that was fun. So sometimes I like to tease people and go, oh yeah, when I was in Hollywood, it's such a silly phrase. People make a career out of it, but that was never my intention. I like to think of my time in Hollywood, which is quite different from many people's time in Hollywood, but completely successful. I must find the original photos of some of these. I must go through some old drives because I'm in danger of losing the original photos. They're in the books, but I guess some of them might be on Facebook. I really should have a look. Right, what else have we got? There's a longer story here called Living in Hollywood, otherwise known as Cheap Places to Stay in LA. Oh, Minotaurs and Other Everyday Lovers, a trilogy. I don't want to read all three of these, but maybe I will read all three of them. But I'll just read Nevermind the Minotaur now, and I'll read the other two after the end credits. mind the Minotaur. Never mind the Minotaur, you'll never see things eye to eye. He'll never take you out for lunch, he's simply not that kind of guy. You'll never make him compromise. He's not a foe you'll be defeating. If you suggest a game of chess, he's just the type to win by cheating. He's not the sort who will concede. He has another kind of talent. More likely to kick you in the ribs than try attempting to be gallant. You will not reason with this chap. Sit in his ways from dusk till dawn. You'll get the sharp end of his tongue and then the sharp end of his horn. Never mind the Minotaur. I fear you'll always disagree. But if you feel you must confront him, just don't come crying back to me. He's got the manners of a bull, one who is clearly hopping mad. His music tastes are deadly dull, and can be best described as trad. Oh, why must you wind him up, when you can never be the winner? No, you will never see him smile, because he's simply not a grinner. He's simply not the sort with whom you'll ever get to wiggle. Why do you try to tell him jokes, for he will never ever giggle? Never mind the Minotaur, I'm fearing matters soon will worsen, and any goodwill I achieved, you very quickly are reversing. I implore you to ignore him. Instead you stand there simply mocking. You've no chemistry at all, it's his biology you're clocking. You are a man, he is a beast. You really love your partner's moody. Tall, dark and handsome with a horn, with inclinations to get nudie. Oh wow, come on, you're clearly loopy. This monster's right out of your league. You could downgrade and date a troll, but no, you're thriving on the intrigue. Never mind the Minotaur, please cast him right out of your head. You're never gonna make him swoon, you'll never get him into bed. You'll only end up badly skewered, in your crown jewels sadly speared, and you will never be the same. My God, you're both completely weird. I cannot see this ending well, I really wish you wouldn't stare. With your intimidating leer, it's hard to watch, oh, I despair. The sexual tension's really mounting, oh, you've both got quite a nerve. I think you two were meant to be. You've met the match you both deserve. This one, my long-lost friend. Oh, my long-lost friend, I've not seen you in years. I miss you quite sadly, I was even in tears. I was often heard sobbing by my folks in my street, but my life has improved since we did once again meet. You have changed, that's for sure, there is no use ignoring. I just try not to notice, I wouldn't say you were boring. You're my long-lost friend, I don't listen to rumour. I like telling you jokes, but you have no sense of humour. Oh, my long-lost friend, I've not seen you in ages. You were once in the news on the very front pages. You were a little well known for a play you were in. Now you cannot stop talking about how God made you thin. It's a tiny bit like you're trying to convert me. Your tales of the war do not really divert me. You're my long-lost friend, it was so good to see you, but I'm really quite glad that I don't have to be you. Oh, my long-lost friend, I've not seen you forever. You suggested a night out, and I'm not known to say never. But then we went out bell-ringing, which, well, didn't impress. I thought we'd play Merry Hell, but instead we played chess. What about karaoke? It's not exactly my scene, but you were once such a rebel, now you're losing your sheen. You're my long-lost friend, and on good terms with fame. I was expecting a wildcat. You're just a Tormo so tame. Oh, my long-lost friend, you were so hard to find. All those years never called, no, I tried not to mind. All those years never wrote, you just had so much to do. So many pies left to eat, so many guys still to screw. I don't want to condemn your quite thoughtless behaviour, 'cause since I met you again, I think you did me a favour. You're my long-lost friend, I don't want to abuse you, but with a little good fortune, I might even re-lose you. That's kind of inspired, sort of, by, well, you remember Friends Reunited, sort of before Facebook, when you were able to sort of get in contact with people. that you'd lost touch with. I got in contact with one friend who, I soon realised we didn't really have anything in common anymore, and we tried to do creative stuff together, and it was all on his terms, and it didn't work out, so I sort of backed out of that one. He made me feel like it was a privilege to somehow still be friends with him, and really, never mind. This one's called Never Never Be Forgotten. The room where she once sat now feels so empty, but she will never, never be forgotten. Her laugh, her smile, everything about her, everything that reminds you of her, the way she held your hand when small and showed you across the road, kept you safe every day as you grew, you won't forget this. The family photos upon the wall tell only half the story. You were privileged enough to be there for those occasions. Sitting in silence now you can recall so many times the good and bad days of life, but it is the happy times that will last. Remember all those moments and treasure every one. Every one. The house where she once lived now feels so empty, but she will never, never be forgotten. This one's called Never Trust a Skinny Fish and Chip Man. Never trust a skinny fish and chip man. He should be 6'4", his muscles hard. His face should be a rosy-coloured red too, and his arteries hold blood that's made of lard. But never trust a skinny fish and chip man, 'cause you never know what he might have in store. No, you never know where he has stuck his sausage. If you see him eating salad, call the law. There's something odd about a skinny fish and chip man. He may batter you until you're black and blue. He may wee into your mushy pea container. Well, that's not a thing that anyone should do. So please do beware of skinny fish and chip man. He may worship you just like you are a god, but just be sure you realise when he snogs you that all the time he make-believes he's kissing cod. It's true. This one's called A New Book in the Family. I brought him home for the first time today, having selected him from amongst a whole shelf of second-hand books in a Red Cross shop on Ebury Street. Quite the proud adoptive father I was, showing him off around the office to admiring oohs. A hardback, eh? That's a nice one. What a gorgeous cover. It was too, but I was bound to think that. I took him home on the bus that night, safely ensconced in my briefcase. I guess I was feeling a little overprotective. Didn't want other people oogling him, reaching out and trying to turn his pages. Better kept away from the eyes of prying commuters. Once home, I promised him support and apologised for how messy my place was, assuring him that I would never read him in the bath. That first night I slept with him under my pillow, tempted to read a page or two, but no, he'd had a busy day. In the morning, I told him, I'll introduce you to all the other books in my library, to your new family. But now, in the light of day, I realise that I can't. I can't bear to let him go just yet. And so we snuggle up and I switch off the alarm. These moments are precious. Who says they ever need end? There is no doubt in my mind that some books are just more precious than others. And this book, well, he's exactly one of those. We've got a couple more, and then we're going to have to finish, I'm afraid. Although there'll be a couple more of the monster poems after we finish. This one's called Too Short to Be a Yeti. Too short to be a Yeti, far too tall to be a bear, too well known to be described as anything remotely rare. You really do defy description. What on earth should you be called? You're pretty furry, that's for certain. They surely cannot call you bald. It's just not easy to define you. Do you ever purr or bark? Well, if you've ever seen the light, you left us rudely in the dark. Oh, you're too short to be a Yeti. Yes, I read that on a blog. You're far too tall to be a bear, too badly trained to be a dog. Too short to be a Yeti, far too tall to be a frog. You're not a handsome prince in need of some quick mercy snog. You really are quite the enigma. You are a question to be solved, a witty Christmas cracker query that really needs to be resolved. A secret veiled in mystery, the sort that makes most people gape, almost invisible to the eye, yes dear, and quite the queerest shape. You are too short to be a Yeti, but you've surely got a Yeti's growl. You're too tall to be a frog, and you are not a guinea fowl. Too short to be a Yeti, far too tall to be a sprite, far too nice to be a villain, you are brought up too polite. What you are's still a conundrum, I'm embarrassed to confess. Might you be the Loch Ness Monster? I'm just too bamboozled now to guess. Could you be the next top model, or the cure for something grim? Far too unruly for the grannies, yet with a smile so very prim. Oh, you're too short to be a Yeti. Could it be that you have shrunk? You're far too tall to be a sprite, but you are mine. What a hunk. I'm sorry I've not been able to read any of the sort of stories. They're just a little bit too long, really. But I was trying to find something that was sort of positive to end on. But, again, I couldn't find one either. So we're going to finish on You're no friend, let's be enemies. You're no friend, let's be enemies. I really think it's for the best. I really think you would prefer it, so it is what I would suggest. You really like to put the boot in, no need to go behind my back. No, simply say it to my face. Yeah, I'm equipped to take the flak. I have a few barbed words for you, dear, so I'm going to get them ready. You never could commit to me, and now as foes we're going steady. It's a relationship to cherish. There is no need for us to wait. So if we can't be perfect lovers, let's bond instead in hate. You're no friend, let's be enemies. I really think that way will work. Insulting one another freely, I think would really raise a smirk. Because it's good to get the bite out, really make your feelings known. Hey, you were always such a liar, I'm just surprised your nose ain't grown. It will be good to speak your mind now, but to hear the truth may be a shock. We always thought you were a big boy, all the time was just a sock. It's really better to be honest. It is a trait today quite rare. To say you really make me sick, well, in a way it shows I care. You're no friend, let's be enemies. I really think that makes more sense. It's always better to be open, best not to sit upon the fence. For to be polite means nothing, if the truth remains concealed. So please just say what you're thinking, let it all be gloriously revealed. There's no need for us to fight though, I know eventually you'll see that you're a rogue and I am perfect. Think on, I'm sure you will agree. Ah, once upon a time I loved you, but now your ego just grows bigger. Now my enemy, you're in my sights. Oh, but I just cannot pull the trigger. Dear oh dear. So, that's Are We There, Yeti? At least some of my favourite pieces from Are We There, Yeti. As I say, I'll have to come back maybe and read the odd story at some later date. But I hope you enjoyed those. But that is all we've got time for. Join us again soon. We've got plenty of episodes in the can. And we've got more poetry episodes coming later in the year as well. So, yeah, we'll say goodbye. And, yeah, a couple more monster poems to finish off with. But, okay. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Can you hear me? Clarkin, can you hear me? My partner now lost. We were so much in love. I had your name there embossed on my arm, on my leg, tattooed proud to be read, tattooed proud on my buttock, also there on my head. Can you hear when I call you? Won't you please reconsider? You can raffle me off to some considerate bidder. All I want is one night, oh you eight-legged charmer, snuggled up on your sofa amongst your tentacled armour. Kraken, can you hear me? Whenever you've gone marauding, bet they love you out there, bet they're loudly applauding. You monsters have got it, you are so supremely appealing. The hearts of fair maidens you're always quite deftly stealing. Can't you hear what I call you? Do you even remember? Me and you only dated the once 2 years last November, but you left quite a mark on me in that way that you do. Less a kiss, more a nibble. In fact, you started to chew. Kraken, can you hear me? It's quite difficult coping. I know you've left me for good, and there is no use in hoping for your splendid return as you float in just waving, or your arms in the air. Such sweet daydreams I'm saving. Don't you hear when I call you? Giant squid are so boring. Should I shout really loud? Then you'll still be ignoring. There's no use in me trying every manner of voodoo. So now I'll just get a new love and let his name be Cthulhu.
It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
Wow. Really? No kidding.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear. What's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast. Let's go.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Cthulhu, you are hot. Cthulhu, you are hot. You're really just the bestest. I beg you, take control of me, because I just want to be infested with your weird, endearing strangeness. I rather fancy going nuts. I want you rage beneath the surf. Don't want excuses, please no buts. You've got a mad glint in your eye. Yes, which infers you're quite doolally, quite demented, so unstable, yet I still hope we can be pally. An aphrodisiac you are, or there is surely no denying. Monster, let's go for a drink and let me promise you I'm buying. Cthulhu, you are hot. You're really rather wicked. Now I don't want to sound obsessed or like some kind of lovesick dickhead, but you really make me melt. I see you rising from the ocean. It really gives me quite a thrill. It really fills me with emotion. It really makes me sort of weak. It rather makes me like a rock. I want to whisper naughty words, and my intention is to shock. I really don't plan to escape. I know you'll never let me go. My lovely monster, I am yours. I will not accept a no. Cthulhu, you are hot. You're really quite a horror. I so adore your evil ways. Just grab me roughly by the collar. Please hide me in your secret lair that's hidden deep inside a wave. Oh, you are quite the sexy beast, and I will gladly be your slave. With your horny, scaly body, or with your ravenous demeanour, I will do anything you ask. I'll even use a vacuum cleaner. I'll even cook you Sunday lunch, whilst you sleep in beneath the sea, snoring loud amongst the whelps. Oh, be my monster, marry me. Cthulhu, you are hot, my sweet crustacean, now my hubby. With your fangs so very sharp, with your appendages so stubby. You are the best friend that I've met, my enemy so sweet and tender. But when I hear your awesome roar, it's like my heart's gone in the blender. Yes, you bewitch me with your ways. I feel I'm done, a real beginner. My lovely beast, he can be trusted not to eat me for his dinner. I really hope our love can last, yet I can't predict our fate. But still, for now, Cthulhu loves me, until the day I'm used as bait.
Kitty, kitty, Dealy. Purr, purr, kitty, kitty, kitty. Oh, I love Dealy. I'm a big fan of his poetry.
Oh my god, is this show over with yet?
I'm flabbergasted. Flabbergasted.
Oh, Paul, he's so sweet. Dealy! Hi, Dealy.